Good afternoon, and welcome to the Million Veterans Program MVP Facebook Live event brought to you by AMVETS and the VA. My name is Sharissa Jackson, and I'm your host today for this event. I'm the current Chief Medical Executive of AMVETS. I am a retired Air Force nurse. I'm America's combat nurse, and I am a veterans advocate. I am so excited to have this conversation today around the importance and significance of genetic research. But before we get into discussion, I want you all to know as viewers that if you have any questions, comments, please post those in the chat. Someone will definitely get back to you either while we're here on the live event or afterwards. We welcome your engagement. We welcome your questions and your comments. So let's get started. I want to introduce to you all the panelists that are here today to have this riveting conversation. We have Dr. Suma Muralidhar, we have Dr. Phil Tsao, and we have Ms. Natalie Morales. Thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate you guys taking out your time. I know we're all busy to be here to discuss the importance of genetic research in the MVP program. So at this time, I would like for you all to introduce yourselves and tell me about your involvement in the MVP program. Dr. Suma, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you, Charissa, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm Suma Muralidhar. I'm the Program Director for the Million Veteran Program in the Office of Research and Development at VA Central Office. I've been with the VA for over 20 years and have been with the Million Veteran Program since it was just an idea in our minds.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here. Dr. Tsao?
Thank you, Teresa, and hello to everyone. My name is Phil Tsao, and I'm coming to you from the VA Palo Alto, where I am the Associate Chief of Staff for Precision Medicine, as well as a Professor of Medicine at Stanford University. And I have the honor of being one of the co-principal investigators of the Million Veterans Program.
Welcome. Thank you. And Natalie Morales, thanks for being here. Tell us about yourself.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Natalie Morales, and I'm a Marine Corps veteran, MVP Research Coordinator at the San Diego VA Healthcare System, and I'm an MVP partner enrolled into the program.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here today. And it's also great to have another female veteran on the panel as well. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about research and the VA Genetic Research Program. We're going to talk about the importance of research. We're going to talk about how do you enroll into the MVP program and what do we do about sharing our DNA and our medical record information. All of these probably questions that you all are thinking about because our DNA is private, is our own personal landmark of who we are. And so I know those are some concerns of all the viewers, and we'll get into the weeds of that. But before we start, I would like to just give you guys a personal story of what I've dealt with the MVP program. I think it's an awesome program. A few years ago, I had not heard about it 2 years ago in 2019. And I walked into the VA and there was this huge sign. And I'm like, what is this MVP? And I was able to get some great information. As a clinician, we did research going through nursing school. So I understand the importance of research. And to know that this was happening at the VA just made me smile, made me happy to know that they were concerned on this level to be able to find out, what is going on in our veterans' DNA to help provide different resources and different plans and healthcare options. So I appreciate this program so much. So let's get into what this program is. Exactly what is MVP? And Dr. Suma, would you like to take that question, please?
Sure. So we all know that our health is really dependent upon so many factors, right? Our genetics, our lifestyle behaviors, what we've been exposed to in the environment, so many factors. And so the Million Veteran Program is really a research program that's focusing on understanding how all these factors impact our health and what causes disease. And today we are one of the largest healthcare system-based genomics research program in the world. So think about it. In the future, if a veteran goes to the doctor can have all of this information at hand and can ask the question, what disease is this veteran at a higher risk for? What can we do to prevent it? Or what medication is the most appropriate for this veteran? So you can personalize or customize treatment to your individual factors. And that's what's called precision medicine or personalized medicine. And MVP is really the platform, the research platform that will allow us to ask those questions.
That's great. And Dr. Tsao, would you like to expand on that a little bit more?
Sure. And through the generosity and engagement of our veteran partners, we have built, as Dr. Morales just mentioned, one of the largest databases in the world for genetic research. And through that, we've unleashed a number of teams to really attack those issues and really study the diseases that are common within our veteran population. Diseases like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity, liver disease, as well as diseases that may have occurred because of their exposure to their during their military service, such as PTSD.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you guys are focusing on those things. But let's talk about when this MVP program started. When did it actually start, Dr. Suma?
So we launched the program nationally back in 2011, and this happens to be our 10th anniversary year. And we started thinking about it even before that. A few years before that, we did focus groups and surveys of veterans. And we tried to understand what are their expectations from a program like this and what are their concerns. And we built it just to address those concerns.
And so $1 million, why $1 million? And where are you at with this $1 million?
Well, so now we are almost at 840,000 veterans enrolled, thanks to all the veteran partners. We went for $1 million because it's really a sort of a game of numbers, if you will. To understand, what factors contribute to any given disease, we need to have large numbers of people with that condition and even larger number of people without it, so you can compare and look at what might be associated. And that's the start to understanding everything about the disease. So that is why we set $1 million, and it makes for a cool acronym, don't you think, MVP?
It does. And to know that you're already at 840,000, I mean, you're not too far from reaching your goal. So let's talk about who these veterans are. Who are these 840,000? So Natalie, let's talk to you about that. You're one of the MVP participants. So you're one of that 840,000. So who are these veterans?
So yes, I am enrolled. 90% of the veteran partners enrolled into the Million Veteran Program are male, and 75% reported their race as white. And only 2% of the veteran partners are representing the post 9/11 service era, the service era that I represent. So I wish I could say the MVP data were more diverse. However, it currently mirrors those who are enrolled within the Veterans Health Administration. And women are the fastest growing group within the VA, and we need to get more Hispanics, more Asian Americans, more African Americans enrolled in order to find new ways of treating and preventing illnesses. This is particularly relevant because of the current demographics in the United States and how they're rapidly changing. And this is exactly why I joined. So there simply aren't enough female veterans representing our health needs within the VA, or through veteran-specific research. So unless more women like myself, like me and you, step up and contribute to research, our primary and mental health care needs will never fully be understood.
Yeah, that's great. And to know that, we want diversity and inclusion in a research study, right? Because not everybody is in the same box. Not everybody's a male, not everybody's a female. And you and me, Natalie, we are women of color. So that's also another demographic that needs to be in research as well. So Dr. Phil, who else? I know Natalie spat off some statistics about the different types of veterans within the MVP, but who else is represented in the MVP program?
Well, as Natalie said, the MVP is very representative of the veteran population, which is a nice swath of the American population. And this is important, as Natalie said, to include, for example, women in studies that may have been done in the civilian world, but we want to understand to make sure that, for example, genetic studies that show a predilection to something like breast cancer, do they actually work, or do they actually inform in the veteran population as well? And importantly, as a matter of fact, genetic studies across the world have historically been done in individuals of Caucasian descent. So the diversity in terms of racial diversity, in terms of sexual orientation diversity, everything that veterans represent is an important contribution to our understanding of how genes affect health and disease.
And Dr. Suma, since you guys started the MVP program to now being at 840,000. How's those statistics changed, which is what Natalie just talked about, from the amount of female to the amount of male, women of color, diversity? How's that changed over the years?
Well, the number of women have sort of stayed around the 9%, often since we started. It hasn't been much different. And that's why we're doing this women's campaign. We want to increase the number of women who participate in the program. We have seen an increase in the representation from other racial and ethnic minorities over the years. And we are now at an overall 25%, with 18% of those being of African-American descent. And so that's a very important part of this program. And we need more women. In addition to what Phil and Natalie mentioned, there are many conditions that are more prevalent in women, and beyond the breast cancer and cervical cancer, ovarian cancer, there are other conditions like depression, some of the autoimmune disorders like lupus, many others that are more prevalent in women. So we really want to have more women participating so we can understand how they differ and how we can tailor this new precision medicine of the future to meet their needs as well.
Absolutely. And I know for a fact, just in my clinical studies, that, when you look at different medical conditions, I mean, my family, there's high blood pressure, there is lupus, there is cervical cancer. And so all of those things, I know without even doing a sample that's somewhere in my DNA, because the DNA doesn't lie. And so at the end of the day, when you are looking at precision medicine, you have to be able to say, how do we pinpoint for Sharisa or for Natalie what's most appropriate for them, given we have different DNA. So I appreciate the study actually capturing that type of information. So how do veterans enroll into the MVP program, Dr. Suma?
Well, it's very easy. There's one of two ways. One is that they can join online right now. We have an online portal, and the link is mvp.va.gov. It's very easy to remember. We'll repeat that a few times. So they can go online, get authenticated, and complete their consent and HIPAA authorization online. They can schedule an appointment at the medical center for a blood draw. They can do surveys online. All of this can be done through that online. We also have an information center. And if your VA site is now back open for visits, clinical visits, you can also walk in to a VA hospital where you get your care, and you can find the MVP clinic if you're one of our centers. You can call our information center, and that number is 866-441-6075. Again, we'll flash some of these later again, but there are many ways that you can actually participate.
Awesome.
Online is the fastest.
Yeah, and we want as many participants as possible to get you guys to your 1 million, right? And particularly, we want more women veterans to participate. And so
Absolutely.
Now let's talk about the information that was collected. Tell me about the information that was collected for the MVP project.
So if a veteran chooses to enroll in person as opposed to joining online, they can always meet with a research coordinator like myself over at one of the VA facilities, and the appointment takes approximately 20 minutes. And oftentimes we can schedule it at the same time that the veteran is already there at the VA. What we do is we sit there and we go over the consent form, and I need to make sure that the veteran understands everything that is included in the consent. That includes the goal of MVP, accessing their data, further contact when research comes available, and filling out different types of surveys, as well as providing a blood sample. So when we go over the informed consent, veterans, they don't have to complete the survey there with us. They can actually go online and complete the survey, all the surveys that are there. We have a baseline, we have a lifestyle, and we also have a COVID survey right now that's relevant to the times. So once the informed consent is complete, they'll be asked to provide a blood sample. It's about 2 teaspoons. So sometimes people get nervous when they come in and they're like, are you going to take a whole gallon? We're not taking a whole gallon. What we're doing is we're taking one little vial. I don't know if you can see it. It's one little vial, and it's about as much as a pinky. And from there, rather than putting your name or any information on it, we actually put a barcode on it. And then that barcode is then scanned into the MVP database so that it connects with your information. So you don't have your social security number on it or your name or anything like that.
Wonderful. And Dr. Suma, any other information is collected?
So, in addition to the surveys, they complete all their lifestyle and their basic health and health history through the surveys. The blood sample, as Natalie mentioned, and we have access to their medical records. So we get, all of that data from what's already available in the medical record.
And I'm glad you brought up medical records, because everyone is always concerned about who's going to get my information, if this is going to my medical record. So Natalie, talk to me about that. Was that ever a concern for you as far as the privacy of your information when you submitted your sample?
So it never bothered me to share my medical information when it came to the Million Veteran Program. And, that's because I know all of my information is stored in a location and it's all coded and it's all encrypted. And of course, not all MVP staff have the same permissions to view the data, despite all of us working for the program.
Yeah.
So two of us that can match your identity, but others that can't. MVP also has a certificate of confidentiality that protects the information from outside sources from trying to access your data. But of course, at any given time, if you don't feel comfortable with being into the program, or you're not entirely sure if you still want to share your medical health, your medical information or your genetics, then you can always withdraw. You can do that by going online. Not online, by doing it in person, or you can call the information center and then they can withdraw you verbally and then send a confirmation letter in the mail. But it's important to note that the data we collect during the time that you are enrolled will still be used towards research studies that have already been assigned to investigators, since they've already started that research.
And Dr. Phil, how do you protect the veterans' information and make sure the researchers are using the DNA for the intended research purpose?
Yeah. So most importantly, as Natalie and Suma have already mentioned, is that when veterans donate either their information or the blood sample, it is given a code that has nothing to do with any personal identifiers associated with the individual in question. That code is known only to a very few people within the program. And then, so when researchers actually access the data, they only see the code as well as the health-related information and then the genetic information or other information, molecular information we may derive from the actual sample. So from a researcher standpoint, first of all, they only see the coded information. Secondarily, we are vetting the researchers to make sure that they are adhering to a set of rules of behavior in terms of that they're using the information for their intended purpose that has been approved by our panels, as well as the fact that they have the security as well as access to be able to come into the VA facility either electronically or in person to actually access that data. No individual data will actually leave the VA itself.
Wow. And Dr. Suma, do you want to add any more to that?
No, I just want to reiterate that point. So we have used a very novel way of providing data access. We don't send out your data to people, to researchers. We bring researchers to the data in a central, secure, scientific computing environment. And so that, and as Natalie mentioned, right from the time we collect a biospecimen or the data through a survey, till the time we provide this data to researchers, we have plenty of protections in place.
And I think that's very important. I mean, because when I saw the poster, that was the first thing I said, oh my God, they're going to know that I was part of this project. I mean, and they have my information, they have my DNA. And so I was very protective of that. But now that I know what I know, I may have to go over to the DCVA and sign up, because that was my biggest concern. You know, who's going to know my information? Will I have access to this information? And what project is it going to be used for? So Natalie, let's talk about your experience. Let's talk about your experience. And just like what I said, what made you decide to want to be a part of this? And did you have any reservations to being a part of it?
So I didn't have any reservations.
Okay.
Participating in research validates women's military experiences and increases the knowledge of health disparities specific among the women veterans. Now, a common misconception is that women don't deploy or participate in any combat experiences, and that simply is not true. I deployed to Afghanistan in 2010 and did my fair share of manning security posts and even shot artillery. So as women veterans, we need to break the stigma, and by joining MVP, we're able to support the efforts of various studies simultaneously with one 20-minute visit. And it doesn't have an impact on your VA chair healthcare benefits. That includes your compensation and pension.
Very good. Very good.
Teresa, I'd like to add that, we don't actually put in the medical record when you participate in MVP, that participation is not added to your medical record, and no genetic information, none of that is put into the medical record. So,
Wonderful.
that's another layer of protection for privacy and confidentiality.
Absolutely. And so let's walk through the process. So you get someone who's interested, they say yes, I say yes, I give a sample. Then what happens, Dr. Suma?
So we have, all of this, as we mentioned, is coded information. We curate this data. The blood sample goes to our central biorepository, which is currently in Boston. And then we isolate the DNA from that sample. And then we send that out to get the genetic markers through a contracted vendor. And again, everything is coded. Nobody gets any personal information. And then we have, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes, and so then all of this data, the data from the biospecimens, from your blood sample, the survey data, and also the medical record data are all provided for a given research project in what we call a study march. So researchers who are approved access will get access only to the data that's needed for their project.
And I know a burning question is probably, do we get our genetic results back? Will the veteran get their genetic results back, Dr. Suma?
Well, so right now we are not returning any genetic results. And just as we talked about, we're protecting all of this confidentiality, right? So there's no direct association between what we collect and the data, the results that we receive. And we do all of this in what is called research grade. In order to be able to utilize this information, the genetic information, for your clinical care, there are a few other steps that need to happen, that needs to be validated to make sure that this genetic change that we are looking at, or a marker, it belongs to you for sure. And so right now we're not returning. We're doing a couple of pilot experiments to see how this can be done in the VA healthcare system. So in the future, there might be opportunities where we have validated information that we can return to participants.
This has been a great conversation, and I appreciate you all being here. But before we conclude, I want to get into some other research priorities at the VA. So Dr. Phil, can you talk to us about the other research priorities that's happening at the VA right now?
Well, as we've all previously mentioned, we're very much interested in the underlying health and disease within the veteran population. So of course, veterans suffer from common diseases that are, again, common throughout the United States and throughout the world, such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, or even lifestyle habits like excess smoking or such. But we're also interested, again, in disorders or challenges that may be specific or may have been in higher regard within the veteran population, such as anxiety as well as depression. And so they are all priorities for the Million Veterans programs. And importantly, remember that your genetic background provides either predilection or protection from these disorders, but isn't a guarantee that you'll develop them. And that is a complex combination of the environment that you live in, as well as the exposures that you may include, including diet and such like that. So helping us understand not only the genetics, but also the environmental impact will help us, again, provide more precision care in the future. But in between, it also will allow us to have more precise clinical trials. So we'll identify individuals who might have a predilection to a specific disorder. But then we all know that even if you have these genes, again, it isn't a guarantee. So what are the things that make some people more apt to develop a disease and not? So we'll be able to, again, more precisely design clinical trials and target those individuals and really, really help us understand and accelerate these discoveries.
And Dr. Suma, what types of research MVP samples are being used to study there at the VA?
So right now, I think just as Phil mentioned, there's a whole lot of disease areas in the mental health, PTSD, schizophrenia, bipolar. We have some on Gulf War illness, for example, and other neurological disorders, Alzheimer's disease, project on TBI, and several other chronic diseases like cancer, different types of cancer, heart disease and diabetes that Phil mentioned. So all of these are ongoing right now. And last year, in response to the pandemic, we also added studies on COVID-19. In addition to the survey that Natalie mentioned earlier, we've launched a research program for COVID-19 in MVP, and we're looking at how an individual genetic makeup may contribute to whether someone is asymptomatic or or have more serious effects, or how they respond to treatment. So we're looking at all of those things as well.
So right now, this conversation is about how to bring more women veterans into the MVP program. So Dr. Suma, tell me how and why is it important for women veterans to be a part of the MVP program, and why is this a priority right now?
Well, we need to have enough representation, enough women participating in the program, so we can better understand what is the basis of disease in women. Our anatomy is different, our physiology is different, not the same as men. And again, as I mentioned earlier, there are some conditions that we see more often in women. So to understand this and to make the future of medicine be available to women, just as to everybody else, we really need more women participating in the program.
I agree. And Natalie, as someone who participated in the MVP program, what is your hope for women veterans who are thinking about and contemplating and really come and enroll in the program? What is your hope for this?
To get more involvement in all research overall. We just don't have a big enough footprint when it comes to the VA or research in general when it comes to VA research. We just need more representation, and we need to support one another and really break through this stigma. Otherwise, we're always going to be put on that back burner. There aren't very many of us already in the armed services, so we're already choosing from a smaller group of veterans, and now we're choosing from another group of veterans that also have to be enrolled within the VA. But you don't have to be enrolled in the VA if you go online. As long as you can confirm your identity, you can go on there and use ID.me, you can use eBenefits, you can use My Health eVet. As long as you can confirm that you're a veteran, you can go online and you can enroll there.
Wonderful. This has been a great conversation. It's time for us to conclude. But before we go, I want to go around the panel and ask for just closing remarks. And we'll start with Dr. Suma first. What are some closing remarks, some takeaways that you want the viewers and audience to leave with?
Research is the backbone of providing good health care and for having good health in all people. And so I think participating in research itself is a very important thing. And particularly, I think for women to understand better what factors are important for their health and disease, what causes disease, how can we prevent them, how can we treat them better. We absolutely need veterans, and I'm calling upon all women veterans to learn more about the program. And if you're interested, to volunteer to join the program. And again, you can do it one of two ways. You can do it online, or you can call our information center. Online, mvp.va.gov.
Wonderful. And Dr. Sal, closing remarks, sir.
Well, again, I want to reiterate that we thank the veterans who have participated in MVP up to this point, the largest single healthcare system database that is around genetic medicine going forward. But we can still continue to do better. And specific to the conversation today, 10% of 840,000 is a large number, but we can still increase that number. And importantly, we can increase the diversity of women within the cohort as well. And that will only add insight to health and disease for veterans as well as all Americans going forward.
Awesome. Thank you. And finally, Natalie, my veteran friend, my female veteran friend here, closing remarks. So tell us, what would you say to someone that's sitting, another female veteran that's listening, and what would you say to her to have her enroll into this program?
I would say support women veterans overall. We're not asking you to re-enlist. We're asking for 20 minutes to look over a consent form with a research coordinator like me, or look at it online, talk to your family, see if they have any questions about the program. We want you to have no reservations. We want to remain completely transparent. So if you have any questions, you can always call the information line. You can always call 1-866-441-6075, and they can answer any questions that you might have about the Million Veteran Program, as well as schedule you for an appointment with me or a research coordinator.
Wonderful. So again, I thank you all, Dr. Suma, Dr. Phil, Natalie, for being here today. Thank you, viewers, for being here today. Hopefully you put some questions there in the comment box and you're getting your answers. If not, please stay logged in so that our VA representatives can answer your questions. I know they've been putting some websites in the chat. If you didn't catch those websites, our panelists have been calling them out, but certainly you can go to va.gov, you can go to amvets.org, and you can go to mvp.va.gov to actually hear this information and read this information for yourself. So again, thank you all for being here. I hope this panel was very informative. Thank you all. God bless. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.